Aloha kako. Mahalo everyone for joining. Just a few housekeeping before we go ahead and get started. We ask that folks remain on mute for the duration of today's webinar. We will be saving some time at the end for questions that you may have, and ask that as your questions arise throughout our different presentations, that you go ahead and pop your questions into the chat, and we'll see how many we're able to get through at the end. We will be spotlighting our speakers, and so for others who are joining us, feel free to turn your cameras off if that is most comfortable for you. Again, we ask that you remain on mute for the duration of today's webinar. We are joined by partners from Naleo TV, who will be doing a live streaming of today's webinar for folks who are unable to join via Zoom. And so again, for those of you who are not a part of the panel for today, feel free to turn your cameras off if you don't want to be a part of the live stream. And please feel free at any time to put questions as they arrive into the chat. Mahalo. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. Mahalo everyone for joining us, and aloha kako, and welcome to today's disaster preparedness webinar hosted by Vibrant Hawaii in partnership with Hawaii County Civil Defense Agency. O wau no o Janice Ikeda, no pi'i honua mai au, o wau kaluna ho'okele ma Vibrant Hawaii. My name is Janice. I am from Pi'i Honua, and I serve as the CEO of Vibrant Hawaii. For those of you joining us via Zoom and those joining the live broadcast through Naleo TV, mahalo for taking time to be here. It shows your care, not just for your safety, but for your ohana, your coworkers, your neighbors, and the community that you're a part of. Today's webinar isn't just about what goes into your Go Kit. It's about how we show up for one another before, during, and after disaster strikes. Today, we'll hear from leaders whose experiences span emergency coordination, community response, insurance, and resilience hubs, each bringing tools you can use not only to help yourself, but those in your circle to be more ready and resilient. We've reserved time at the end of today's webinar to answer any questions you might have, so feel free throughout the presentations to drop those questions in the chat. And without further ado,
recording in progress.
Go ahead and get us started by introducing our first presenter, Talmadge Magno. Talmadge serves as the administrator for Hawaii County Civil Defense and has done so been involved in emergency management for well over a decade, with extensive experience in coordinating response to volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, wildfires, and other emergencies that are unique to Hawaii Island. He oversees an island-wide alert system, hazard mitigation planning, and cross-agency emergency coordination, ensuring that each one of us as residents have timely, actionable information during those critical moments. Talmadge, would you please start us off by sharing an overview of this year's hurricane outlook for Hawaii Island and what our residents should be aware of?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Janice, for that introduction. And I'd be happy to share my insights as far as what was forecasted this year. So let me share my screen. Okay, just confirm with me that everybody's seeing my
Good.
Okay, what we have here is this year's National Weather Service hurricane season outlook for the Central Pacific, which runs from June 1st to November 30th. I have to recognize National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, Climate Prediction Center, and their weather forecast office in Honolulu for these products that we receive every year. And kind of despite what might be in the media and so forth, they confirm with us that they will continue their products. They're monitoring as they have every year. And so for 2025, basically what they've said, it's going to be a near to below normal year, forecasting 1 to 4 tropical cyclones for the period that I said, May to November. And what this breaks down to is basically, percentages you see are listed: 50% chance of near normal season, 30% chance of below normal season, 20% chance of above normal season. So normal on average year being 4 to 5 cyclones, tropical cyclones a year. So these numbers are kind of on the low side, but we still must be prepared because it only takes one getting close enough to us or getting a direct hit that would lead to catastrophic situations on the island. So we got to be prepared no matter what the situation is.
Mahalo. I'm
So
curious.
that how that breaks down to is basically we're on the cool side of the ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation conditions in the Central Pacific. And so it's neither La Nina or El Nino. We're kind of neutral on the cooler side. So forecasted this lower number. This forecast, this outlook does not address potential impacts to Hawaii, but we all know that tropical cyclones do produce damaging surf and surge, damaging high winds, and flooding rain. So, that's all of the impacts that we have to be prepared for. So let's see. Next slide. Okay, continuing on the hurricane season, I just wanted to illustrate on this slide over the since 1970 in relationship to the ENSO state. So you can see that no matter what the ENSO state, whether it's La Nina, neutral, or El Nino, you can still get substantial hurricanes numbers. So even though some years it shows was 1977 and 1979 0, every year has some kind of tropical cyclone. And tropical cyclones are either tropical depression, tropical storm, or hurricane, each level bringing in different level of winds related to the intensity of rain and surf and surge. But nevertheless, it kind of gives you a idea of even being in a neutral state or La Nina, colder waters, you can still get hurricanes. Of course, in 2015, where we hit 16 systems, way on the high side there, which is not projected this year. But nevertheless, we got to focus on that. Just one can give us enough impacts that people might be suffering, and we're going to have to take care of folks. So, with all this, what's the next step? So I wanted to illustrate to folks, from the products that we put out here in civil defense. So the first QR code that you see takes people to our hurricane page. This is where you can find all products on what's going on for a current event, gather information as to what the National Weather Service, Central Pacific Hurricane Center, National Hurricane Center all that products that they're putting out. So this is a good website to visit if you're proactive and want to know what's going on with you know, the hurricane season or threats that are emerging to Hawaii. The next QR code, which is our alerts, is where you sign up and get information as to all the different alert products that are out there. We have the integrated public alert warning system that people need to know about. That gets tested once a month, at least the emergency alert system portion of it, that you get the automated radio and television scroller that appear at the first working day of the month. A couple of days ago, we were tested with the WIA system, wireless alerts that HIEMA launched. That's part of the integrated public alert warning system. Those are all national systems. We also have the outdoor alert warning system, the siren system, which is the audible alerts. What that basically tells you when you hear that go off, to go seek information on your TV, radio, or your cell phone if you receive our emergency messages, and I'll go over that next. But seek information as to what the alert is about. And just to note, when the sirens go off, the first working day of the month, the test is for 1 minute. If it goes over 1 minute, that's an indication that that's an active alert to go seek information. That on the outside chance that it's a runaway siren, you might still go seek out this information. But once in a while, because these are mechanical devices, we get runaway sirens. But generally, an active alert, the siren will be sounding for 3 minutes. So you've got those alert systems that the government pushes out. Those are called push alerts. Now we have the Everbridge, where you can sign up and receive messages from civil defense or Hawaii County Police. You can get police messages or civil defense messages. It'll be telephone call on your landline or cell phone, email messages, text messages, and it'll also be linked to social media, Facebook and X, and also we do an audio recording that goes to the radio stations so that the local radio stations will play that message. So those are the alerts. And a new feature that we have on the Everbridge is called Hawaii Alerts, where you can text 888-777. And this was primarily set up for the visitor coming to the island, that they can get texts to alert them while they're on the island. Seems like a lot of residents like this one as well. But it's pretty user-friendly. Just you sign yourself up and you can take yourself off when you no longer need the information. So, our alerts, Everbridge alerts, also are, you can personalize them. You can, like I said, choose them the way you receive them. You can also choose the messages you get. If you're impacted by high surf, flooding, and so forth, you can just choose to get those messages, or you can get them all, depending on what you're vulnerable to. And then the last QR code is our hazard impact map. It is posted. We update it. It shows, what road closures are happening. If there's shelters that open, anything that the county's doing that needs to be addressed in related to the emergency or situational awareness, we'll post it here. Also, you can find National Weather Service information from Hawaiian Volcano Observatory. We kind of have this as your one-stop shop for all our information. And finally, you've got all this information. You know about the hurricanes. You know about how to get our alerts and what's next, right? You need to have a plan. Why get all this information? Why know all this stuff and you don't have a plan? So already I talk about what are your vulnerabilities. So know what your vulnerabilities, where you live, where you work, where you play. Are you subject to flooding and isolation, road closures? Or is your area have high fire danger? Know what you need to address. Based upon those vulnerabilities, are you going to evacuate or are you going to stay home? Discuss this with your families. Have this in your family plan. How are you going to communicate? How are you going to communicate when kids are in school or you're at work? This having this planned out saves a lot of stress if you're not having to think about this when things are happening. So the Ohana emergency plan is posted on our Civil Defense website. You can download it, fill it in, have it available for use during emergencies, all emergencies. I think that is all I have for today. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui Talmage. And when you and I connected in preparation for this webinar series, we talked a lot about it's highly likely that the folks who have jumped on today already have a certain degree of preparedness. I mean, the very fact that they're here shows that they are probably the folks who are taking initiative to be personally prepared and to have their families prepared. And really, part of our intention in bringing everyone together is to strongly convey that we are looking for those allies and advocates who can take the information and resources that's shared here and to be the ones to take it out to your neighborhoods and share it with others. Print it out and share it with your pickleball team. Share it with your coworkers. Put it up in the break room. Put the QR codes in your company newsletter. Ensure that everyone that you care about also has access to this information. And Talmage, before we go on to our next speaker, is there anything more that you'd like to add to that?
No, thank you, Janice. I think that's a good idea that we only can do so much. We depend on the individual, especially those that are listening in to help us. So share this information. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. And if you see vulnerable people in your community, and you have the capacity to take care of them, or at least let us know about them so we know who's out there and who needs our help. Thank you.
Mahalo nui. So Talmage, one of the things you highlighted is how critical it is for our communities to stay connected to trusted real-time information. And beyond receiving alerts, people also need a plan and a sense of shared readiness. And that's where local organizing can become a really, really powerful action in preparedness. And I'd like to go and introduce our next speaker, Renice Bain. She is the Regional Disaster Officer for the American Red Cross Pacific Division. Renice brings decades of hands-on experience leading local and regional disaster responses throughout Hawaii and the Pacific. Renice specializes in mobilizing community volunteers, organizing shelters, and empowering everyday people with the tools to take initiative before emergencies happen. Aloha, Renice. When Talmage spoke about ensuring others stay informed, how do you see individuals helping to organize readiness within their own circles, like a faith group or within their workplace?
Aloha, thank you, Jenny.
You're on mute, Renice. No.
Test, test.
Yes, there you are.
Yay! Touchdown. Okay. Sorry, can you repeat the question? Because now
Sure.
my ears are unplugged.
Yes. And I know you guys have been busy supporting Maui, so I can imagine it's been a long few days. Mahalo for joining us. And so the first question was, when Talmadge spoke about ensuring that others stay informed, how do you see individuals being able to help and organize readiness within their own circles, like a faith group or their workplace?
So that's super crucial is it's the groups. So when a disaster happens, it's the groups that congregate together. But by the time they're congregating together to get supplies or to respond to support themselves, it's on the fly. So taking Talmadge's heeding Talmadge's advice to be prepared beforehand is recognizing what your communities need and what the capacity and capabilities are of each of these organizations you're going to be enlisting the help of. So with churches, you know your congregations best, but you know specifically the individuals in that congregation. There may be people with food insecurities, with medical emergency type needs if we are impacted. So really identifying a more focused effort to the group that you are supporting would be helpful, because that would allow you guys to be able to sustain a little bit longer until the cavalry can come help.
Mhm. Thank you. Are there any Red Cross tools or templates that can help someone get started with organizing a small group or a family plan or an extended family plan?
Right. So on the redcross.org, I know you and I have gone on that redcross.org website, and it is kind of complicated because it serves the whole nation. And so there's a lot of layers to have to navigate, but just kind of focus on the getting the kit is where you want to end up on, and making emergency plans. We also locally on the Big Island, we have an office on the Big Island that is led by one of our community disaster program managers, Chris Cristiano. And Chris also pushes out programs to into the communities of Be Red Cross Ready, and actually walk through the community groups through the steps of how to prepare, what to prepare, and answer questions. Because it's kind of difficult if you're online and you're just looking at a list, but you can't really interact and have that feedback of what if I don't have this and what if I need to adjust that. So attending one of those Be Red Cross Ready programs or asking for one in your community and have it scheduled, then Chris and the volunteers can come out and actually share hands-on information, really customize it to the group that they're speaking to, for things that matter. Because if we're talking to a group of kupuna and we're talking about baby supplies or, I don't know, shovels and rakes that they can't use, it's really not that helpful. So being in this type of forum with Red Cross and the volunteers that volunteer their time would be, I think, a lot more helpful. There's also another program called Ready Rating, and that program assists businesses. So this program has been ongoing for a long time, but seeing the Maui businesses, impacted by the Maui fire, and trying to figure out whether or not they can stand back up and do business, if they're done for, like where they're at. This Ready Rating is a really good program for business owners, organizations to do an assessment of what continuity of operations looks like for them post impact, if they can do it, and if not, where would their energy and resources be redirected to help support the communities, right? But if they're a crucial component to the recovery of your community, then what does that look like? And it also talks about preparing your employees in-house so that they can leave their home, like the rest of our volunteers in Red Cross. We always encourage them to, steady their house, make sure they have their families ready to shelter in place or go to a safe place to shelter, so that when they leave, they can leave in confidence that their family is well taken care of and have everything they need. And it's the same concept for businesses. It's when you're asking your employees to come to work to help push the programs and services that we are offering or that they are offering, we need them to be able to leave their homes with confidence. We need them to be able to feel like they're out there to help, and that their family's not going to be a client, right? So there's some really helpful programs like that. But just reach out to our Gila office, redcross.org, or to Janice. and then Janice can make the connections. But we really do see the value of communities working together as a strong core group to support each other, so that this kind of alleviates the heavy lift for Talmadge.
Mahalo. I'd like to ask a question off the script. And so sometimes I feel like there's a lot of information. There's a lot of websites on how families and households can be prepared. Sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. And for folks who are living paycheck to paycheck, what are some low cost, no cost ways for those families to just get a little more prepared than they are today?
So Hawaii Food Bank has a really good, like, quick tip on, because the basic necessities is food, shelter, clothing, right? So for the clothing piece, it's setting aside closed in a go bag where you can get up and evacuate in a moment's notice. The shelter piece, it depends on if your home is strong enough to be able to shelter in place, or if you need to get up and go to a safe place. And then the food piece is whether you can shelter in place with the food that you need, right? It's a really big ask for families who already are experiencing food insecurity, to ask them to have 2 weeks worth of food for, on stock. So Hawaii Food Bank had this really kind of creative way of approaching how to look at your cabinet differently and identify that you actually have food to be able to stretch it out for, a week. I was like, yeah, I don't even know how that's possible, but it kind of is when you look at your food, when you look at your cabinet differently. I think there's, like, the basic steps are, you set aside food, or I don't know. We got to get creative on this part, Janice, is like, um, most of these families who are struggling with just having food has to be on this list for immediate support. What else they can do? I think, so here's the conundrum, and now I'm going off script too. Sometimes when we look at emergency feeding, right, it's probably going to be in a canned goods of some sort, and these families are not going to be receiving their daily nutritional needs are not going to be met, right? Because we're giving them canned food, or something that is just not nutritional. So it's kind of just getting creative. I liked Keala's program with freeze-dried food, right? And if we can donate, not we as in Red Cross, but we as a community can bring goods together and teach people how to freeze dry food of their with their nutritional values in it, then we're not feeding them canned goods. This is one of those big mountains we gotta go figure out how to chip away at. But thanks for opening that can.
Yeah, sure. Well, what comes to my mind as low cost, no cost, that can be really powerful, is get to know your neighbors.
Mhm.
I grew up when we could still go to our neighbor's house and be like, I ran out of eggs. Could we borrow an egg? And I think that's a part of Hawaii that maybe we might be losing, but that interdependence within communities is something that made us really strong and really resilient. And perhaps it's part of our culture that we need to revive again, is getting to know our neighbors. Step outside, say hello, start to get to know people. Doesn't cost anything. Thank you, Renise. Next, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Doug Wilson, who has been a pillar of the volcano community and a leader in establishing the Volcano Emergency Response Team, one of the 20 resilience hubs on Hawaii Island. Doug played a leading role in the development of the Volcano Community Emergency Response Plan and serves as an instructor for amateur radio. Aloha, Doug. I'm wondering if you could start off by sharing with folks what a resilience hub is and how it's made a difference in your community in Volcano.
Aloha, Janice, and thank you. And good morning, everybody, from a wet volcano village. Yeah, Janice, a hub for us anyway is a group of volunteers that have as its mission to assist the community in meeting whatever needs they may have before, during, and after a disaster. For us, we became a member of the the Vibrant Hawaii hub group, a few years back. But even before that, we had formed a volunteer organization called the Volcano Emergency Response Team. And actually, that team was instrumental in developing a plan, an emergency plan for the volcano area. And the reason we developed the plan was we felt, several of us in the volcano area realized that we have some vulnerabilities, and we need to kind of think about, gee, if something happened to our community, whether it's a hurricane or a volcanic eruption or a wildland fire, whatever the case might be, that maybe we got to think about being prepared for that in some way until help arrives to assist us with whatever the disaster brings to our community. So we developed a plan back in 2017, and that plan really has helped our community with at least understanding that we have a structure in place, the plan itself, that is designed to assist the community during disasters, and also brings together a group of volunteers that are willing to assist our community families until help arrives. So I think it's been a real asset to our community, and the community has at large has pretty much been actively involved from time to time in that particular plan. The plan also, what it's done for our community is it's provided our community with a resource of emergency information. So under our plan, we have a structured communications unit that provides information during emergencies to the community. And we have people that have volunteered in all different areas of the volcano community, whose mission is to provide us with Volcano Emergency Response Team folks, with information about what's going on in their neighborhood, but also allows us to pass down emergency information to those communities and hopefully get that information to the last person on the last block and the last street, kind of thing. So I think that also has helped our community and given our community some comfort in knowing that they're going to have access to information about disaster, when and if it strikes. The other thing that we decided that we needed to do, again, because we're a fairly rural community, is we've created a cast of emergency supplies. Will it solve all of our problems during an emergency? No, absolutely not. But we do have some supplies that we can bring to bear and to assist the community during times of disasters. And even before disasters, all of our volunteers are available to assist the community during events such as the 4th of July parade and so on and so forth. So we created a resource of volunteers to assist the community during those times as well. And lastly, it's allowed us to do some training. We facilitated through Vibrant Hawaii first aid training for our volunteers and residents. So we do have a number of people here in Volcano that are trained as in first aid. So in an emergency, certainly that's going to be a good resource for us. So it's been very, very helpful to form the hub and to have an association with Vibrant Hawaii that links other partners, hub partners, and other resources. So we've gone from a community that didn't have anything to rely on or anybody to rely on to a vast network through Vibrant Hawaii of resources that we can link into should the need arise. So.
Mahalo, Doug.
Mhm.
I'm wondering again, I'm going to go off script a bit and see if Kathy Matsuda, who is a leader of our North Kohala Resilience Hub, is able to come off camera and share a little bit about the work that they do in North Kohala. Kathy, I know, and you guys have been a part of the Vibrant Hawaii Resilience Hub Network since 2020, when we were in our very early days of forming. And I really appreciate the way that your hub focuses on what we call the blue skies resilience and those everyday activities that help residents to be more resilient. Could you share a little bit about some of the things that your hub does to increase social cohesion, to provide for those kind of everyday crises that families face, and just how you bring community together to be stronger and more resilient?
Thank you, Janice. Put me in a spot. But it's a lot of it is joining together with your community partners and knowing, who they are, meeting them, um, participating in community events, that sort of thing, and lots of education. And thank you for Vibrant Hawaii providing, as Doug mentioned, first aid. So each, where the goal was to have first aid trainer from each district, and that is so helpful to get people trained. Just education to learn what to do in an emergency, being prepared, getting families ready. So, like for us, we go to senior citizen meetings, we go to the school, and we just share information, and also all the handouts that they have, um, that is provided to share with the community. We have our night markets once a month, and so people are available. They can do a booth for free and share their handouts. It's just getting the information out into the community
Mhm.
to know that it's available for them.
Mhm. Thank you, Kathy. I know some of the other ways that we partner is you've hosted our Vibrant Hawaii Social Service Navigator and help them connect with folks that may be dropping into your hub looking for resources for stable housing, for health, access to health care and things like that. And you're also serving, I believe it's for your 4th year, as a Kaukau for Keiki food distribution site. And so we were
Yes.
speaking with Renice earlier about the importance of food security and families having access to food. And Kaukau for Keiki is a huge island-wide effort that actually kicked off yesterday. And this year serving well over 5,000 keiki on our island through the efforts of over 30 community organized groups. And so thank you so much for that, Kathy.
It's great to have the social navigators in each of our districts. And I do make use of Poana. I make her always calling her for any needs of the community. So it's good to have them available. And there's so much we need to learn, for the kupunas, and we need more services for kupuna, which I'm finding out. People always come to the hub and seeking help, and it's a lot of learning for us too. Yes, Kako for Keiki was amazing. We served 200 yesterday, and it's a lot of organizing. I would appreciate Vibrant Hawaii that we're allowed to do this. So whenever something comes up, and I think the hub should just jump at it and do it for their community.
Mahalo, Kathy. Doug, to wrap us up in this section of the presentation, for those who are inspired and want to get involved, how can someone start or join a resilience hub in their own neighborhood?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll start with how you start a hub. That was quite a challenge for us anyway here. And the first thing that we did, and I think that most communities that are interested in forming a hub probably need to do at some point, is identify what the risks are for their community, and the needs, I should say, the needs and the risks. Because many people in the community aren't aware. They have perhaps a superficial view of what a disaster might bring to their families and their neighborhoods, but most people aren't aware of the specifics. So what we did is we listed and thought about and thought through if there was a hurricane or earthquake or wildland fire or an eruption here, how would that affect the community? And what resources would be or not be available to the community? And then we set about educating, as Kathy pointed out, educating the community about those kinds of issues. And that's what generated the interest among the community and ultimately the support that we got from the community. But I think that you need to reach out to the community and make them aware. Some of them may be aware, but most probably are not aware of what the risks are in your particular community. And actually, what we did is we actually put together a PowerPoint. And a lot of people don't like PowerPoints, but we used a PowerPoint to go out to groups like Rotary, to the Volcano Community Association in our case, and other organized groups in the community to get that word out. And that began the process of developing support and actually developing the plan. And as far as volunteering for a group like a hub group or any other group for that matter, I think that letting the community know what kind of resources you need, what kind of help you need for the community and your hub, whether it's logistics or medical communications or whatever it might be. And we had a table at our farmers market for our volcano emergency response plan. So we had people come by and ask about the plan and about the group and so on and so forth. And in that exchange, we often discovered, and people that stopped by often discovered what they can do to help the community by joining our group. And one example would be someone came up that lived here in Volcano, came up and asked about what we were doing and how we were doing, what our needs were, and we kind of gave her a broad overview of what we do and what needs we have and talents we need in the community to help us with our response efforts. And we discovered that this person has a career in disaster recovery. She goes all over the world after a disaster occurs and assists communities with recovery efforts. And so we have, of course, talked her into joining our group to help us in that effort, should she be here on the island after a disaster. So I think having discussions with community members of the community and explaining to them what kinds of needs you have in terms of skill sets. I think that's a way to get people to join your group, and gives the people the opportunity as well to utilize their skill sets to assist the community.
Mahalo, Doug. I'd like to build on that and segue over to our COO, Maurice Messina, and invite him to share a little bit about how Vibrant Hawaii has been investing in building community skill sets through our Resilience Training Center.
Thank you, Janice. Aloha, everyone. Yes, our Resilience Training Center, one of the good things about it is that it really is helping communities become more resilient, whether it's through hands-only CPR certifications, the freeze-dried food program that was discussed earlier with Red Cross and Janice, chainsaw safety training, and then we've got some of our Adulting 101 series. This is one of the things that we were speaking about earlier, Janice and I, about how do we get more resilient? How do we get more opportunity out to our hubs in our community through this Resilience Training Center? So what we do is we're always on the lookout for new training opportunities. We're always on the lookout for new partners, whether through our Resilience Alliance or through our hubs, about what does the current community need and how do we meet that need. For instance, if you look at the chainsaw training portion, what we do is we get in touch with our resilience hubs, and we ask them to find 8 volunteers in their hub. And through those 8 volunteers, they put together a chainsaw team. And so we work with Arbor Global and then some certified trainers here on the island to train up that resilience hub. So we provide all the training, all the resources, all the equipment to the resilience hub. And once they get trained, now they have a group of 8 people who have everything from their chainsaws to their chaps. I'll tell you, I've had a chainsaw for I don't know how long, and I've never had chaps. So in ordering the equipment, that was one of the things that I was definitely, my wife was very happy to see that I purchased some of those for myself as well. But once the training is done, now this hub or this community has this resource. For instance, if it's blue skies and there's not much going on, there's no emergency, but someone from that hub, from that community is driving through their neighborhood and they see that they have a kapuna that maybe has a tree that's kind of looking kind of dangerous over their house or something like that, or if there's, maybe, something just doesn't seem right. That hub can go to that house and they can say, you know what, we have this opportunity, we have these resources. Is there a way we can help you guys out with this before the emergency strikes? And so that's one of the things about the Resilience Hub that I feel personally, especially as a person who lives in Fern Acres and we're on one street in and out. And if that gets cut off, our community has to look out for our community. And through this Resilience Training Center, we're able to equip our hubs and equip our community with more resources.
Mahalo mo. I really appreciate the way that you're highlighting how resilience is rooted in relationships. And part of taking care of our communities also means preparing for what comes after a disaster, especially when it comes to financial recovery. Our next speaker, Ryan Thornton, brings insight into how to prepare ahead with the right insurance coverage. Ryan, could you please come on video?
Hi, good morning.
Hey, Ryan. Aloha. Let me go ahead and introduce you while you're hopefully able to join us with video on. Ryan Thornton is a licensed agent with Pyramid Insurance who specializes in both personal and commercial policies. He's worked with individuals, small businesses, and nonprofits across Hawaii to help them assess risks, understand their policies, and avoid common gaps in disaster-related coverage. Ryan is especially passionate about helping organizations prepare financially for what comes after an emergency. And so, Ryan, based on what we've heard so far, how do insurance decisions fit into disaster readiness, and not just personally, but for a family or a group?
So I always say sweat now so you don't bleed later. That's how I view looking at disaster preparedness, especially being that we're so far from the mainland and help. If we don't have a solution on hand, it might be delayed to get the help that you might need. When it comes to thinking about insurance after a disaster, it's too late, right? There's no changes. The bell has been rung. So you have to think about worst case scenario. There's the concept is maximum probable loss. So what's most likely to happen? What's the worst case that's most likely to happen? As I found out this morning, water damage is the most likely claim in Hawaii. Pipes breaking, flooding, those are the most likely occurrences of property loss in Hawaii. Obviously, the fire in Lahaina brought to the front the dangers that wildlife fires can pose for Hawaii. But what the insurance company is required to do for you after the fact, after the flood, after the fire, after the hurricane, it's set in stone. Like once a hurricane announcement is made by the National Weather Center, you can't make policy changes. It's too late. So I remember during the Fukushima tsunami, I stayed up all night emailing customers. You have coverage. You have no coverage. I didn't want anybody to get damage and think they had money coming if they didn't. So people need to be aware of everything's gone up. I mean, the plumber I paid today was $600 for an hour and a half of time. everything's more expensive. Tariffs have had an impact on building material prices. COVID had a great impact on building material prices. So people need to think about reviewing their policy limits for property damage. And then we are not as litigious as the mainland. Thankfully, we're a pretty mundane litigation state. We don't give out lottery tickets to people when they have a lawsuit. So I do recommend that everybody carry an umbrella. It's cheap legal defense and settlement dollars. It'll go over your personal auto policy. It'll go over your personal liability from your homeowners. So if you're out there cutting trees down for kapuna and that tree falls on our house, you would be covered under the personal liability section of your homeowner's policy. But most homeowners policies have small limits. Commercial policies have $1 million. That's pretty standard. But commercial, personal lines policies, homeowners policies, renters policies typically have a $300,000 limit. So you want to have an umbrella on top of that to give you an extra million or more. I personally carry $5 million, and I have for 20 years, just in case. I've never used it. I hope I never use it, but just in case. I'd rather have and not need than need and not have.
Wow.
Any other specific questions I can address?
Yeah. Well, thank you for mentioning the importance of reviewing your policy, reviewing your coverage limits, and considering an umbrella policy. I'm curious, are there any common coverage gaps that people often miss, especially here in Hawaii?
Typically not. Well, I should say that. The caveat to that. If you're in a flood zone, you should have flood insurance. I had a customer on Kauai that lived near a creek and didn't have flood insurance. I gave him $25,000 out of my own pocket as a loan, no interest loan. And I said, but understand, you're gonna buy flood insurance from now on. And that flood policy was $13,000. It was a lot. And he calls me, he's like, I don't remember pulling out my wallet. He's a good friend of mine, but he was pretty salty that I sold him an expensive policy. And he told me, I'm never going to need to, it'll never happen again. That was a one-time thing. So I didn't know if we were going to be on the outs or not. And then about 6 months later, 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, my phone rings and he's like, hey, how much coverage do I have under that flood policy? Yeah, his property flooded again. And this time under his flood policy, he got $800,000. So that $13,000 was well worth it. Now, since then, he's taken actions to mitigate. He built retaining walls, and it'd have to be an enormous flood in order to encroach into his property. But here was somebody that had a property next to water that had never experienced a flood, and then all of a sudden he had two in 2 years.
Mhm.
So if you're in a flood zone, your homeowners will exclude any damage from a flood.
Mhm.
And the FEMA definition of a flood is it has to be a natural standing body of water, so a creek, a lake, a pond. It has to exceed its normal boundaries, so it has to go above the shoreline, and it has to impact more than just your house. It has to be it can be 2 properties, so you and your neighbor, or it could be 2 acres of water. There's some people that live on a hillside. If it rains really hard and a stream develops down the mountainside and it only impacts your property, flood won't even cover that. FEMA has very specific rules. So take the steps necessary that are not insurance, put in some French drains, reroute the water, do all that stuff before you need to. From a personal line standpoint, what can a homeowner's policy do? It's pretty broad. If I hit a golf ball, I always use this one. If I hit a golf ball and break, smash your window at your house, homeowners covers that. My homeowner policy will pay for that to be replaced. That's nowhere in the policy does it say golf ball strike. It's pretty broad. So it's a claim brought against the policyholder or their family, their immediate family, related by blood or marriage in the house, under 18 or spouse. So something your kids do and you get sued, covered. Something your wife does and you get sued, covered. That's who the named insured is extended to. But it's there for property damage and bodily injury. So if you chop down somebody's tree or cut down their tree and it lands in Auntie's house, covered. And you're doing it for free, not as a business. If Auntie got injured by the tree falling, also covered. That's bodily injury. So it's important to have in this day and age. It's important to have coverage. It's important to review it because you own the outcome. If I had a customer in Hilo that I sent him a worksheet, he has a business. I sent him a worksheet every year and said, please detail the cost to rebuild your warehouse, your building in shipment. And every year he'd send it back $487,000. Then one night somebody breaks in, vandalizes it, steals stuff, and sets it on fire. The rebuilding cost was more like $2 million. So I flew over the next day and I asked him, why did you tell me $487,000? And his response was, that's what it cost to build it. I collected building materials over years. Whenever there was a downturn in the economy and building materials got cheap, I would buy those materials. That is not helpful when it comes to you have a mortgage on the property and now it needs to be rebuilt. So you can utilize the space for its the advantage it gives you. He got through it, but it almost put him under. I asked him right then, I go, are you out of business? And is the body dead and the brain doesn't know it yet? And he somehow managed to bootstrap his way back from that enormous loss. So regret is expensive, is what I tell people.
Janice, I have
Premium
a
is what you pay.
question.
Go ahead.
Hold on, real quick. Well, Renice, could you put your question in the chat and then we'll
Yeah.
get to questions at the end. Brian, you've mentioned a lot about homeowners policy, and I know that there are a lot of folks on Hawaii Island who are renting. Are all of those same for people with a renter's policy?
Yes. So a renter's policy provides the same benefits as a homeowner's policy from a liability standpoint. It just doesn't cover the structure. It covers your stuff. A homeowner's policy has several parts of coverage. You have the dwelling, the building. You have the contents. Then you have if you have no place to live, it'll pay for you to rent someplace else while your place is being rebuilt. That's called loss of use coverage. And then it moves on to liability coverage. So being sued by somebody. A renter's policy is exactly the same, except it doesn't cover the dwelling. So historically it's been very inexpensive.
For folks who are joining us because they are here really to support others in their life, maybe they have an aging parent, maybe they have young kids who are just kind of starting out on their own adult life journey, how can we step in to support others in our close network? Do we encourage folks to take pictures of their homes and things prior to damage occurring? Do we help to walk through their policy or just help tell them, make sure you get an appointment with your insurance person to review it directly? How can we be helpful in the process?
I would say walk through the house, walk around the property and in the structure once a year and take a video. It'll be stored in the cloud. Proof of ownership is a humbug thing. You have to, and here's the other thing. People often underestimate what they've collected over the years and what that cost. My wife is a clothing horse. She has a closet full of clothes that I don't really want to remember how much all that stuff costs, not to mention her shoes. But I go through my house once a year and I take a video so that if it burns down, there's never a question of, well, what are you claiming? How are you reaching this number? It's irrefutable proof of ownership that it was in your closet, it was in your drawer. So I walk around my house once a year. I lay everything out. I open the drawers. There's after the claim, there's some spreadsheets out there on the internet that are helpful to think about, like, oh yeah, I had a power strip in that room. Well, how much did the power strip cost? Well, I bought it from Best Buy. It cost $90. Oh, that's $90 that you're due. So it's good to document everything so that you want to create the easiest path for the insurance company to write you a check. And a video that's on the cloud in your Apple, in your iPhone or whatever, it solves all their problems. That's what I recommend.
We have 2 minutes left and we have time for one quick question. Very quick, 1 minute answer. Is there a difference between hurricane insurance and flood insurance? Clients are learning post-disaster. They have a policy that does not cover their flood or hurricane disaster.
I'm sorry, Janice, could you say that one more time?
Is there a difference between hurricane insurance and flood insurance?
Yes, great question, because you can have both. I'll give you the example of Brenicke's beach boiler in Kauai, because he has a great story. I think I was in high school whenever Aniki hit. I'm 47 now. So Brenicke's is right there on the water in Poipu. And there came a question of, well, which happened first? The hurricane winds, which is covered under the hurricane policy, or the storm surge, the water that inundated the property, because it was also flooded. So what saved him, strangely enough, was he had matchbooks that he would give out. This was in the 90s, people still smoked. So he had a big fishbowl in the front by the door that people could grab a book of matches on their way in or way out. Well, he stored those when he wasn't giving them away. He had the back stock in his attic crawl space of the building. They found those matches, those matchbooks, by the tunnel of trees. If you're familiar, that's miles away. They found boxes of thousands of matchbooks in a field by the tunnel of trees. That was the proof that he needed that the roof came off before the water hit, because wet cardboard boxes full of matches wouldn't fly that far, was the argument. And that's what won. Because ultimately you have two adjusters that are arguing who's going to be responsible for the payout. And FEMA has very strict rules on how things get paid and if what qualifies for payment. Whereas hurricane, really all they need to show is there was an announced hurricane by the National Weather Service, and you have damage. You have wind damage. So there's a delineation between water damage and flood damage, or hurricane damage, wind damage, and one will not pay. They don't cross paths. You're not going to get a check from a flood guy for wind damage and vice versa.
Mahalo nui, Ryan. Really appreciate everything you've shared. As we wrap up, here's the takeaway. You don't need to be an expert to help your community get ready. You just need to be a part of starting the conversation. And so we encourage you to think about one group you're a part of, your workplace, halau, neighborhood, sports team, and to really consider what is one action you can take this week to help folks get more prepared. Share a resource, start a text thread, walk through an evacuation plan. Vibrant Hawaii will be following up with a recording and a resource list from today's panelists so you can continue what we've started. Please plan on joining us next week as we focus on children in disaster. Mahalo for showing up for yourself, your ohana, and your island community. Stay safe, stay connected, and stay ready. Aloha, everyone. Mahalo.